Hey, y'all. Before we get started on the Cosmic Valkyrie podcast today, I want to remind everyone that you can enroll at absolutely no cost for the upcoming masterclass that I'm holding later on this month. It is the 5 keys to unlocking your personal success. So go to the show notes and get registered for that. And today, we are doing another interview. Y'all, I'm loving these conversations. I hate to call them interviews because they're not interviews. They're definitely conversations. And Ananka, is it pronounced Ananka? Ananka Rose?
Ankara.
Ankara. I was like, oh shit, I should go and rehear it because
You and everyone else. It's okay.
we have been talking for months and I have never said it out loud.
I like to tell people it has the word Ankh in it, like the Egyptian Ankh.
Oh, now that makes
That's
sense.
that's how you can remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be a really exciting conversation, y'all. We met about 3 months ago. I don't know. It seems like forever. Seems
It
like we
totally feels like forever.
I know.
This was like a click thing.
I know. And she does human design and I want to talk about that. And
Mhm.
the people in here know that we talk about things in the industry that don't make sense or that are not working or that need to be talked about. And I'm going to tell you, human design was a big one for me
Mhm.
because for years, so uh, Anka, right? Is that right? Did I say it?
Ankara.
Ankara.
This is going to be the running joke of the
Oh
whole
my
call.
God,
It's fine.
right?
Just call me A. Just call me A.
Ankara.
It's fine.
Ankara Rose is the creator of the Success Codex. Y'all know I love the word codex. So she incorporates some methodologies into it that we're going to talk about a little bit later as we go through this. So it'll all become clear. But when I was first introduced to human design, everyone was like, you have to start learning it. You have to learn human design. And they would show me my schematic. And my first response was, you got to be kidding me. I don't have time for that. I don't want to learn a new method. And one thing that you said to me the other day that I was just like, that's it. Like who has 7 years to donate unless that is your inner calling?
Right.
And it
Ab-
was not mine. So I put it off. I put it off. I put it off. And then I met a woman that finally was like, no, 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 I'll just do your reading. And I was like, that's what I want. I want somebody else to do all the footwork for me. So
Yeah.
you were speaking to me about, I wanted to know what you saw in the industry that was not being addressed. And especially when it came to creating your success codex, like what was the instigator for that? Because we always, when we create something, it's always because there's a lack of something.
100%. And I just love this conversation so much. And I love all the conversations that you have because we have to shine a light on these pieces that aren't working that so many of us simply by being online, we're bombarded by so many messages and they put us in a fog. They put us in a fog in the context of the thing that we truly want, right? So when it comes to systems like human design, astrology, gene keys, right? And that's kind of like where I got my start. I was actually a little bit more into gene keys than human design. Gene keys is an extension and an expansion of the gates of human design. So if you've never looked up your human design, you can just look up free human design chart online, go pull it up, and you're going to see this map and you're going to look at this map just like Lynn Louise said. You're going to look at it and you're going to be like, what the hell is this? And for me, I've been an entrepreneur for many years and working with entrepreneurs for many years. And people would come to me because, yeah, I'm somebody like I do like to go in. I like to go in and understand the way that things work. But man, everyone was coming to me like, I don't understand it. And I'm kind of annoyed that I have to pay people in order to have even the littlest bit of a clue, right? We're either paying people to understand our human design, which is not, it's not a problem, right? Like, of
Right.
course, there's an industry for human design readings, or we have to spend a lot of time getting the language down, understanding the way the systems work.
The
Yeah, yeah.
language,
It,
girl, the
well, that's
language.
my thing.
So the woman that did my reading, I was like, Simone, you have to stop using human design terms because they
Yeah.
make no sense to me.
Mhm.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So she finally
Exactly.
started adjusting it to real life.
Right. Exactly. And it's the same with the Gene Keys. The Gene Keys is such a beautiful body of work. It's very esoteric, it's very poetic. But if you're an entrepreneur, we don't have the time to spend 7 years deconditioning in order to live our human design. We don't have years to contemplate a single gate or a single gene key to step into who we are born to be, right? And so language, and so kind of to circle back, it's like my motivation, my inspiration was really fixing the gatekeeping problem that I see with esoteric language,
I love
right?
that because, oh my God, in so many of these modalities, and you did say this a few days ago in our conversation, and I was like, that's it. You said something like the intellectual elitism that comes along with so many of these methodologies. And one of them that when you said that term, I was like, oh my God, like the Akashic records.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
girl, like everyone can have access to it. Don't make it seem like it's this, but and I think that's one of the things I don't like about this coaching and healing industry is when people are gatekeeping, and there's a difference between being the reader and doing that because there are people like me that don't want to go through it,
Right.
or like just letting people know that like there's no this whole hero worshiping thing.
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about that in the shower today. It's like the time of the guru is so over. This whole idea of someone has the knowledge and other people have to come to them for it, like that's the old. So of course we're still seeing it, right? We're in this transition where we're going from what was kind of the old school marketing, the old school control of information, the old school one person disseminating information to everyone else. This is the information age. We can't covet information anymore. It doesn't make sense, right? The
No.
whole point of this time is access. And I think for a lot of us who are entrepreneurs who have knowledge, there's this fear that, like, well, if I give them all the information, what do they need me for?
I
Uh,
saw this
they,
a lot. Yeah.
yeah,
And
but
I
they need
think
us for the deepening,
it's
right?
one
It's
of
like,
those, yeah. Oh, I love that. Because, when I think back about when I first went online and started things
mm,
for my business, it was that, okay, what do you do for a lead generator? Like, how much do you give away?
right,
And like I tell clients that it's all mindset. I say make your freebie better than your competitors' paid stuff. Like
ooh,
because
that's a good one. Yeah.
nobody's going to take away everything that they need. It's the eyeball
Right.
to eyeball
And
transformation.
here's the truth. Information isn't going to give you a transformation.
We talked about
Doesn't
that
work that
too,
way.
right?
Yeah.
I was just making a welcome video for the E10X Mastermind, and I'm like, there's so many of these programs, and I think this is kind of what you're touching on too. Like when somebody studies astrology or whatever, there's so much content being thrown at people. Content, 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 content.
Mhm.
But very rarely do you see a really good coach. And I love the thing that I attract coaches like this, like you, and that are actually taking this information and putting it into context for people so that they can actually create the results. I think
Yeah.
that's a big thing that's missing in the coaching industry is that there can be like these great marketers, but when it comes to coaching and creating transformation, there's
Yeah.
nothing in it for people.
Yeah, and the word that I've been using a lot is facilitation, because to me, facilitation is we're taking the ideas and the information and we're taking it to that next level of helping people to apply it, right? So
Mhm.
in the Success Codex, kind of the way that I view it is like level one is you're learning, or any system, but I,
Yep.
in the Success Codex, which I'll share about in a minute, but it's like we start with the information and then we go right into application. You don't have to know everything to begin to play with it, to work with it, to experiment with it, to see what works, to see what doesn't, right? So it's information, application, and then the highest level is integration, right? We
Mm.
want to get to the point where we are living in our truth. I know that it doesn't matter like specifically what the gateway is in for that, like what the modality is, but I know that all of us, or I'm making an assumption that all of us, everyone listening, it's like we understand that everyone has their own way of finding success, of finding love, of making money, and we have to we have to give people and present them with the conditions to be able to explore that.
Ooh,
Like
I love
that's the
that.
role of coach now and forward.
Right. You give them the method, but then there has to be the ability to take what all you have learned throughout your lifetime and create your own. I always say it's like developing a recipe. It's not following one,
Right.
right?
Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
many, I've spent lots and lots of money on programs that I get into it and it's like my way or the highway. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's not how things work.
We were talking about that too. I mean, like, and that was another motivation for creating the Success Codex. It's like, no, and I am telling the truth on myself here. I am so susceptible to good marketing. I have bought so many things that just played into my really like looking back on it. And I bet everyone can relate, at least on some level, purchasing something because you feel like you're not good enough, you don't have it, and that this person is going to give you that one magic pill, that one answer that's going to solve all the problems. $100,000 easy in the past decade that I have spent on that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And
Hmm.
I can count on one hand how many programs, first of all, delivered what they
Delivered.
promised, and two, supported me as an individual in any way, shape, or form.
I love that you bring that up because there are so many. I'm the same. I have spent probably over 100,000.
I think it's
And
funny at this point, right? Like
I
there's
know,
no
well,
guilt and no shame, right?
it's
It's part of the
gone. I've
growing
gotten it
process.
back. So, but
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. I've been in air quote masterminds where it's just cookie cutter information. And it's like, do this and you'll get this result. And I understand the practice, but just because it got you to where you are doesn't mean that's going to get anyone to where they are. And I really, I think that this whole conversation like stemmed off of the whole cookie cutter approach, because
Yeah.
that is a thing of the past. We're in the age of Aquarius. We're supposed to look at our uniqueness and we're supposed to
Yes.
harness that, not sit back and go like, oh, bro coach over here told me this and that and the other. Not that you're going to take, not, I take stuff from all the coaches that I've had and I implement them when they are in alignment and with what I'm doing. But there's too many people selling based on just content, do this, do that. And there's more to creating. Tell me, let's talk about your Success Codex because you printed off, you gave me my Success Codex blueprint or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and one, I'm dyslexic. Second, manifesting generator 6-3. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, whatever that means. Like, I'm so terrible. I'm like, every once in a while I'll look at it and I'll be like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do understand some of it because I do have a concept, but what all did you incorporate? You incorporated the gate keys,
Yeah.
planets. Is
Yeah.
that like did you take them from astrology or is that part of human?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I did was I started, so again, my background is in human design and gene keys. And my
Okay.
specific interest in human design and gene keys, if you look at your body graph, you see all those shapes, there are numbers inside of those shapes. Those are called the gates. They're also the gene keys. That was just my obsession, like just so fascinating because there's so much differentiation there,
The
right?
the
And
numbers between like that are in the center, you have your
yes,
centers, the
exactly.
numbers that are in the little circles.
Yes, there's 64 of them.
And those are
They
called, and does
correlate.
everyone have 64?
So there's 64 potential that can
Oh, okay.
express, right? We all experience all of them because through a solar cycle, right? Through a
Okay.
year, the sun goes into each one of them,
Okay.
all 64. So we all experience them sometimes. Some of them, the ones that are colored in your body graph, you have consistent energy and connect, like you have consistent access to it. And the
Gotcha.
ones that are not colored in, you experience through others and through the
Okay.
environment, right? So that's kind of the way that I think about it. So there are these 64 gates, and the language for them is really complicated, or it doesn't make sense in our regular human terms. And so what I started to think about was, I grew up not with like deep astrology knowledge, but my mother, from the time I was 2 years old, every single, and still to this day, the first question she will ask someone is, what's your sign?
I do too.
She's 75, right? Like first 30 seconds, she's getting your sign, right? So astrology was kind of part of my baseline language. And so what I started to do was I started to think about, I'm working with entrepreneurs. And I just want to say, human design and gene keys as they are not for entrepreneurs. They're not.
They're
We
developed
can
like,
squeeze it in the box, but that's not what it's for. It's for
okay,
personal development, spiritual development,
kind of
right?
like
So
astrology.
like
Astrology
astrology,
origin.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I started to do is I started to think about the planets and planetary aspects, but in the context of business and entrepreneurialism, right? So I was looking at the planets through a business astrology lens. And then I said, where are people's gates? So I was in, human design.
Right.
What gates are in these planets? How can we use these 64 planets to help us understand with more nuance, right? If, like, let's say you're like, okay, well, my Mercury is in Gemini, right? That gives you 1 out of 12 options, right? The 12 different signs. And that's going to give you some understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you're breaking it down with the gates, and then each gate is broken down into 6 more parts, it's 1 out of 384 options.
Oh,
So
right.
it takes the nuance of Mercury is how you express yourself, right? And it's like, okay, well, Capricorn, I have this vibe, and I do this, and then it pinpoints it to your genius, right? This is not something you have to try to force to make. This is the way that you naturally express yourself. And so the idea, and slow me down if I'm not making sense, but the idea behind the Success Codex is it's a map of your genius in business, looking at 13 different planets in terms of business astrology and giving you like very unique insights into how you are here to create success.
So what you flow best through.
Exactly,
So
right?
instead of like going, oh, it's like, no, this is how you do it. This is your zone of genius.
Exactly. And it's based on there has to be some buy-in to astrology, right? Like if you're a complete skeptic and you're like, I think that anything that has to do with the stars is nonsense, the system's not for you. And like, I like to always caveat it by saying, this is not telling you what you're supposed to do for a career. This is not
Right.
telling you who you're supposed to work with. Any system that claims to tell you that is full of shit.
Mm,
Okay. It's just trying to sell you something because it's not comfortable to sit down and have to get clear.
yeah.
Right? But we have to get clear first. Then we use a system like this to help us leverage our genius and step more into flow, step more onto the path of least resistance to do and figuring out your unique way to create success. And so I'm just going to list, not all of them, but like some of the
Yeah. Yeah.
contexts that we're looking
Yeah.
at. And I think it's going to show up backwards for you, but I am just going to show like what this is like this is an example of the Success
Pull it
Codex.
back a little bit. Oh, there you go. Oh, I guess you have to
Yeah.
push it forward.
Oh, you know what? It's because I have it on portrait mode. Let me just see if I can switch it real quick. Um, let's see if
I
that
like
helps.
that it's
Do you see it
in
better?
I'm having a brain fart. Uh what's the sacred geometry form that you put it
Oh
in?
yeah, it's like a Metatron. Like
Metatron.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, what's that? I know the name of it. What is it called? So put it back up there.
Yeah, so all of these circles represents, and I know you can't see the words there clearly,
Yeah.
but you can see, right? There are these different circles here.
Yep.
They all represent a different planet or planetary aspect. And so it's got the planet, but the theme of the planet. And they're called gateways, right? And the idea is like you have a gateway for expression. You have a gateway for client attraction. You have a gateway for visibility. You have a gateway for flow and for structure, for permission, like giving, how do you give yourself permission to be your full self? Expansion, your capacity to hold more, right? So, and yeah, so there are these different contexts, and then you get to discover it's like, well, what's my path for
So
that?
would someone need to have a basic understanding of human design before they use the
No,
codex?
no,
Okay.
because I've been actually testing that out. And so I didn't actually say this, and I want to just circle back because it feels
Yeah.
important. We were talking about this idea of intellectual gatekeeping,
Yeah.
right? And so a big part of what I really aimed to do was to translate those 64 words that people are like, what the hell is this, into really kind of basic language,
Mm-hmm.
but also in the context of how is this a genius for an entrepreneur?
Accessible.
Making it accessible. Like it just has to be, or else I'm not doing my job. Right. And just so you know, right, my primary genius, according to the Success Codex, is decoding with the
Ooh.
archetype of the translator. Now, I didn't realize that until after I created the system, believe it or not, right? But like it makes so much sense. That's my joy. My joy is taking complicated, esoteric, detail-rich things and being like, here it is in a way you can understand it, friend. Like
Right.
that, I love doing that.
And you're absolutely right. Like there's a different dynamic. Entrepreneurs are so different from anyone else on the planet. Like the way that we think, our passion and drive for what we're here to do. And we're going against everything that society has ever taught us.
Oh yeah.
And everyone will say this, it's the biggest self-development journey that you'll ever embark on. And any of the tools that we can acquire are so worth it.
Totally, totally. I sometimes call business, like being an entrepreneur, it's like our mystery school, right? Like we're going to go through all the initiations. It strips us down. It strips down our ego.
It can,
We have to learn how to balance the spiritual and the practical. We have to learn how to stay in our bodies and expand ourselves. We have to go through so many ego deaths and just letting go of control so many times. It's a beautiful journey. It's a hard journey though.
it is.
It it,
But
it
like I
just
always
is.
say, hard isn't bad. And you know
Hard isn't
what? I would
bad.
never be where I am today if I had not decided to become an entrepreneur.
1,000%. I love that. I love that. And I love that you say hard isn't bad. I want to just like write that on my,
I say it
write
all
it
the
across
time.
my screen.
I do it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're taught that hard is bad, but it's not actually bad. The challenges in our own personal life are what
Mhm.
create the ascension and evolution.
Yes.
Without them, we wouldn't have evolution,
That's
right?
right. That's right. I mean, I say the same about failure. I've learned so much more from my failures than I have from my successes. All
Right.
of my growth has come from things not quite working and me having to really trust myself to figure it out. Right? I think that for
Self-trust.
a lot of us, we don't want to make the moves until we have the answers, but so much clarity comes from action. So much more clarity comes from action than sitting and planning.
That's where it comes from. Oh my God, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm always saying, like, action creates clarity. You can't
Yep.
sit back and think your way through this shit. You
No,
actually have to be applying, taking action, because through that, then you figure out what works and what doesn't work. It
exactly.
drives me crazy to see this whole concept of perfectionism. It
Yeah.
keeps women trapped all the fucking time. I got to get it perfect. It has to be like my ducks have to be in a row. And it's like they'll never be in a row. You can get your funnels done, your website, you can have all your content done, and you can put it all out there. And maybe none of it will land and you'll have a flopped launch because you have to it's a continual experiment. That's entrepreneurism is a continual experiment, trying
It
to see what
is.
works and what doesn't.
It is. And so
One week,
we just just like you said, we have to let go of trying to be perfect.
and trying to be somebody that we're not. Does a
Now
success
you're
coach?
preaching to the choir here, right? Like because that there are all these signs, right? And I talk about this with my clients all the time. It's like notice when you're comparing and despairing, right? Notice when you go into this place and you're looking at what someone else is doing, and you're actually using someone else's success as a weapon against yourself,
Ooh,
right?
we all do it. We all do it. Yesterday, I don't know how I was not in your group, but it came across my suggestion. Your email came through, and I was like, "How am I not in her group?" And then the first thing that pops up is your live that you did, which I'm still finishing. I listened to it while I'm driving, so I'm
Yeah.
listening to it today. But I was like, the moment you like popped onto the screen, I'm like, oh my God, she's so gorgeous. She has us down. She's like so excited. Da, da, da. And the first thing in my little subconscious brain was like, oh, maybe I need to calm my environment visuals down. And then I was like, oh my God, Lynn Louise, shut up. You don't need to be somebody else. That snarky or critical pop in at the weirdest times. It's like, no, no, no. It wants to keep you right where you are. It wants to keep you questioning. Oh, should I change things or should they look this way? Should they be that way? And it's like, oh my God, be
I,
quiet already.
it happens to all of us, and I'm going to go like in a slightly different direction here, but I think it's part of the subjugation of women is we've been trained to be competitive with each other instead of supportive, right? And so in those moments when I still catch myself, we're all trained to, I mean, can I just say this? Like, is there any
Do.
other animal in the animal world where the females have to be beautiful?
No.
What got reversed for us
Right?
guys? You know, like the men are competing in the animal world,
Right?
yet here we are
Misogyny.
cutting ourselves down, cutting each other down, right? And so I have just it's been a practice for the past 10 years because I, spent many years in the priestess world and leading sacred women circles and really cultivating this my capacity to be genuinely supportive of other women. And that requires me in those moments when I catch myself, just like you did. It's like, oh, stop that. Yes, it's the like, knock it off, stop comparing. But it's also when I catch myself in that comparing, I stop and I bless that woman, right? Like, that's a huge practice. Just like I celebrate with them from afar. Right? It's not about me being seen for celebrating. It's I
Right.
find that place inside myself. I think that grows us so much more than anything else. Like supporting women, like women supporting women is
It's
the
crazy.
healing of such a huge wound for us.
One of the biggest things, this is totally personal. One of the things that I have been going through since we moved into the age of Aquarius, I am Aquarius, and I was preparing for it for the last few years, this movement,
Mm.
and, processing stuff into this. Definitely worked through some ancestral shit. But one of the things that has been a reoccurring theme for me that I've been like evolving into is what is behind me on my Zoom screens. If you would look at what it was like at the beginning of the year, so different. But even now, it's like there are certain things that I need. Like I need the bench behind me because my cat likes to lay there, like there. And I have Shlia over here. She's my ancestor cranium. And then I
Mm.
have my portals, right? My vortexes and portals. But I'm
Mhm.
like, um, it's so weird. And I love it in the mastermind because uh like we have a woman who's getting her doctorate in psychology and stuff, and she talks about how we learn and how you can tell by somebody's screen what they have behind them on their Zoom screen as how they learn. And I was like, oh my God, this is
That's
so fun,
epic and interesting. And if
right?
she's
It's like,
teaching a
oh my
master
God, I
class
love
on
it.
that, I want in.
Right. It's so funny because I'm like, like I'm sitting here and I have multiple things going at once in my head and in my concepts and second attention and all this. But at the
Mhm.
same time, one of those second attentions is get rid of that plant hanger that's above your head. It's
And
like,
see, I
yeah,
never
I
would have
need to get
seen it,
rid of
but
that.
yeah, yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. There's something about it. And you know why? I'm going to tell you why. When I first came online, there was such a big present, and we were told back then, back in the day, because it was a long time ago, that we had to do things like dress for the pin level you want, like you have to, or like dress for the success and whatever. So the coaches that I was hiring were not like me at all. Like they were very feminine in their appearance. They were very much cheerleaders. They were um just so different. And so I had this concept that I was supposed to like be dressing and shit like them, right?
Mhm.
And it would felt so awful. I'd buy like shirts and stuff that were so not aligned. So over the course, of course, now I don't give a shit. But over the course of that time, I had to figure out who I was again. Like, no, what kind of clothes do you like? And then I went through menopause, and then I had to change clothes again because nothing looks the same. Then I had to deal with that whole thing. But it's like embracing, and what is behind me is very much also representational of who I am. So
Mm.
understanding that I am not the bookshelf with the neon lights and the color coded covers, right? Like that is, you will never see me with a bookshelf behind me. That is
Mhm.
not who I am. My books downstairs in the den, they're going to stay there. Um, but like, how do I create, like it's so much part of our deeper identity,
It is.
how we show up. And that's the scary part. And I think that goes back to the conditioning of what we were told from birth, how we're supposed to represent ourselves, what we're supposed to do, like how
Yeah.
we're supposed to present, and how we're supposed to present as a successful woman. And the moment I realized that my $1 million life was never going to be a 6,000 foot mansion in the Country Club Hills, and that I was still going to have my second floor, no air conditioned office in my 1900 colonial, everything began to fall into place. And then I'm like, oh, you can be making multiple six figures and I still show up dirty. And I
This is
want,
exactly how, and I love that you shared all this. I just cut you off though.
no, go.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, like, this is exactly how we begin to dismantle and debunk all of the conditioning that we've really received from birth, which is, yes, this is how you're supposed to appear. And really just like the belief that we're not good enough.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
it's like I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when I look at the impact of marketing as a whole on us collectively, it's like we have just been immersed in propaganda from the time we're born. Most of us. If you're
Yeah.
watching TV and you're watching commercials, it's propaganda, right? Like
For
that's what it is. And
generations.
right? And all it's doing is saying you're not good enough because you don't have this. And how many times as an entrepreneur did I look at my business or look at my bedroom or look at whatever and be like, I'm not good enough because I don't have this. And what you're pointing out is it's so essential to clearing the path to sustainable success, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Sustainable success is
Yeah.
by just fucking being yourself. Hopefully I can curse because
Right.
I just
Like,
did.
I don't need
Like
a
just be
fucking
yourself.
Bentley. I don't want like, and here's the thing, and I understand. Let's talk a little bit about this. I
Mhm.
understand why business coaches, and this is why I don't call myself a business coach, although a lot of entrepreneurs gravitate towards me, is because I understand the 10K month and the $1 million in 4 years and the traveling and all that. I understand all that. Like, I get why they market to the numbers because there's so much lack and scarcity in the coaching industry that people want that. Their entrepreneurial poverty is real. And they're approaching it by planting this sense of necessity. I can tell you that every time I ask, like, what do you want in the next 12 months? Okay. I ask in my Facebook group. I even did a live yesterday on Lionsgate Portal and Vision and stuff. And I'm like, what do you want in the next 12 months? Because Lionsgate's Portal, next 12 months, right? The amount of times I saw 10K months, a 5-figure month or you know, reaching 100K, which is okay, that's cool. That's a cool goal to have. But the thing is if you just have a number, you're not going anywhere. Like if all you can come up with is where you want to be in 10 months or 12 months or whatever is at 100K, you've not done the work. You've not done the work on the
Yeah.
inside because you're basing your evolution. What you're hearing is when I say, where do you want to be in the next 12 months? You're like 100K. 100K is not an existence. Sure, it's a frequency, but it's not who you are. It's not where that has nothing to do with where you want to be.
It's also like arbitrary, right? Like that's just like the thing that we hooked onto. It's just like a random
Right.
number and it
It's like,
doesn't
oh,
mean
yeah,
what
that
we
sounds
think it
good.
does once you get there anyway, you know? It's like and maybe it's part of like the evolution of realizing that, but I
Yeah.
think it's so it's really easy to get hooked into it because everyone tells you that's what you want.
So I'll give you a little history on it.
Yeah.
This is and it's totally capitalistic society. Back in the 70s, late 70s, this concept came out that 100K was a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
So capitalism, all these corporations latched onto it and created compensation plans based on 100K, and they have never let go of it. They still contain it to this day, thinking that 100K is a lot of money, which it's not. And I understand that that's coming from a place of um, like privilege. I get that. But the truth is that these women that hit 100K in their business start to realize that that whole concept of making 100K, it's not changing your life. It's not a life-changing number. And
Not.
anyone can tell you that. There are families that make 100K and have 2 kids and they're barely getting by.
Yep.
But the corporations and the capitalism wants people to believe that if we give you 100,000 a year, that's a lot of money. It's barely shit in this society, especially
Especially now.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Oh
What
yeah.
might have been a good compensation back in the 70s is nothing today. Yet they want to hang on to it. And this is what gets me. I can't stand when coaches market to 10K months and 100K years because it's not enough money. It's still like putting the cap on women's capability to open the funnel of finances into their life. It's
Yeah.
saying, this is really high for you. Congratulations, girl. You did it. You're a boss babe now. Fuck that shit. I'm like, no, you can open that funnel and you can let thousands and thousands. It is nothing to make a 10K. And I want to get rid of that mindset. I want people to stop. It's a fine. It's an okay milestone, but it's not the end game. And that's what they're seeing it as. That's where coaches and healers are like 10K month, 10K month.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, fucking like let go of that. Let's
Let
just not
let go
even.
of it. Let go of it. And I will tell you, I can't even count how many of my clients made $100,000 using the cookie cutter old model that their coach told them to use, and they reach it and they're like, I can't sustain this, and they burn it down to the ground and they start back over. And let me tell you something, it is slower to figure out your way. And that's something people don't want to hear and they don't want to know. Anybody, I compare it to dieting, right? Like you could do some sort of like high caloric restriction diet and you're going to lose weight, but how long can you do it? And
How
what's the
long can you
cost on your
last?
body? And what's the cost on your body? Like, do you want to lose weight now or do you want to be healthy in the long run? And so that's how I think about it when we're building our businesses too. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's this. I used to use this analogy a while ago too, and now I see how it all comes together. So like people have this view of business, and we can talk about it in relationship to the whole dieting thing too.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
people have this idea that if I work really hard, if I put a lot of effort in, and you can get to multiple six figures that way, you definitely can. We've seen it. You can
Mhm.
even get to millions that way. But if
Mhm.
you're building your business that way, and this is one of my clients had $1 million business, and she was all on hard work and hustle, employee mindset. She would take holiday, come back, work her business, right? But in order to maintain that business, she always had to be working harder. She always had to do a lot of work, put in a lot of hours, take that holiday, come back, catch up, continue to do it because she was operating it like an employee. When we're looking at it from the weight loss aspect, I think about, I love marathoning, and like women that would start working with me when I was a personal trainer, they would take off like 80 pounds within 6 months, right? It was awesome. If I only knew back then what I know now, they would stop running, stop. They didn't have the mindset to continue it, the longevity of it. And so the minute they stopped, they started back into the old behaviors and patterns and put it back on. And then they
Mhm.
would come back to me. By then, I'd figured out the mindset, and then we would have to start, we would do the exercises and stuff, but we'd talk about why you're not getting what you want, because it was like, oh, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to lose all this weight, and then I'll be able to go back to the way that I ate before, and the way I won't have to work out every day. That's the
Yeah.
same concept.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We have to find a new normal that serves us on all the levels,
You
right?
have to create the ease and flow from the get-go.
You
Otherwise,
have to. You have to. And there's so many times now in my business where I like this year has been the crossing the threshold year after a decade of really trying to make different business ideas work. It's finally working. And it's so easy that I'm constantly like, am I doing something wrong?
you
Right? It's
just
not that it's
launched
not getting
your
effort.
program, right? You just
Yeah.
launched.
Oh yeah.
And you had how many people sign up on the first day
Uh,
or
I mean,
first
I
week or
think I had
whatever?
8 or 9 the first week. Now we're up to 17, which
Nice.
is incredible. And I haven't launched it publicly yet.
And
This is just
when does
people.
it start? Because this is going to
It's
come out before it opens.
Yeah, yeah. It starts September 18th, and it's a Success Codex
Perfect.
reader training. So learn everything about the system and then offer it in your business. It's really great. Either for business coaches who want to bring in a layer of like, imagine just sitting down with a client and you have the map of their genius in front of you, how much easier it is to help them find their own way, to incorporate that into your own business coaching practice. It's like epic.
So I'm like, okay, so whoever's listening to this probably understands that we've been in conversations for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
So your goal is
Mhm.
to turn this, you want to do modules so that people can have the lead themselves through the modules and then do calls with them. Eventually, that's how it's going to work. Or is it working that way now?
It's working that way now.
Oh,
So we
okay.
have like kind of like you can take these 8 week journeys, though some of them are finished, so they're replay based. You can do them in as much or as little time as you want. But these journeys through the 4 paths of the Success Codex, that's really for your personal use, right? It's really like, okay, well, I want to grow myself, which is essential. If you're going to do readings on someone, you have to have it down for yourself, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just an integrity embodiment thing. So that's one part of what we have now. And then the other part is for people who actually, they love this work and they want to start bringing it into the lives of others. That's what the reader
Oh.
training is. They want to get paid to bring this work into the
Oh,
world.
okay. So it's a certification.
It is a certification. Yeah.
Okay, so it would be not for somebody like me because I don't want to do the readings. I only
Right.
want to know about myself.
Exactly, exactly. So we have kind of the other arm, and that's going to keep on
Okay.
changing. I'm going to streamline it and make it like probably quicker videos, and then do like live discussion
Coaching.
calls. Yeah, exactly, exactly. But that's that the idea is again like circling it all back. Let's make it really fucking easy for people to throw out all of the cookie cutter stuff and let go of all of the conditioning and find their own way.
Ooh,
Find their
so
own.
I connected the dots. So this certification in the Success Codex will enable business coaches to help their clients create the success that they want with more ease and flow and help get the gamut of people out of entrepreneurial poverty.
1,000%. And not using cookie cutter methods, right? Like,
Yeah,
yes, like
those
finding
whole
their
fucking
own
formulas that don't work.
finding their own way. And just like the other pieces, it is great for business coaches, but people can just do readings and that can be your business too, right? Like they're human design readers. If you do
Right,
human
right,
design
right.
readings, adding this is another great thing, but it works really beautifully for people who do have some sort of a business background, even if it's just your own experience in business.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is specifically for entrepreneurs, though.
It is for entrepreneurs. And leaders, I would say too. I've been working with some people in corporate, like corporate
Okay,
leaders.
gotcha.
That's been really interesting too, because it's still all relevant, you know?
And then I'm like, oh, like, okay, so let me ask you this.
Hmm.
So I have a client in my mastermind that is a human resource director, and she is launching her first um, program, which her clients are like college graduates that are having a hard time getting into the workforce
Mm.
because of, what's happening in the United States.
The world. Uh-huh.
So my thing is as an example, would this be something good for someone like her, even though she's not working with entrepreneurs, to learn how so that she could speak to her client and be like, these are your thing, like you don't have to be a business coach to
Right.
teach it to other
Oh
clients
yeah. Yeah. No, this would be
or
great, right?
to,
And
it's
just
like a
kind of
coaching
thinking.
tool.
It is a coaching tool, right? It's helping
Okay.
people understand, like really great for visibility, right? So the four paths are visibility, growth, balance, and transformation. What do you need help
Ah,
with in your entrepreneurial journey right now? Are you not being visible? So I can imagine if you're helping people to prepare for an interview, understanding how you most effectively express yourself, like who you get to be on these interviews. Because it doesn't matter, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an
right.
employee, you need to be able to be yourself. You want to be
Yeah,
hired for who you really are, or it's not going to be sustainable.
right.
So, yeah, I haven't even thought about it in that context, but
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
it can be a coach. It's like everything. Like anyone can go into it knowing that this is going to be a tool that they're using in their business to help others. Like they're
Mhm.
literally taking this tool, the certification that you're giving them, and they're implementing it to help other people. They're not teaching it. They're not teaching a certification. They're teaching it.
That's
They're
right.
using it to
Right. They're
deeper
using it for
insight.
them. And I will say, like in being in alignment with my values, a big part of the reader training is helping people to find their own doorway into how they're going to use it, right? Because we have people coming from different
Right.
backgrounds. We have healers, we have breathwork facilitators, we do have readers, we have business coaches. Everyone comes like a burnout specialist, right? Well, how can you weave this into your sessions with your burnout clients? What interesting angles can you take? So again, like even the system itself is not meant to be cookie cutter
Yeah,
for the people who are using it with their clients.
because we get to define what it is. It's like a piece of art.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Okay, we've gone over. I
I
knew
know.
we
I was just
would.
like,
I
we're
knew
over
we would.
time. Yeah. How could we not?
I will put all of the links below so that you guys can join her Success Codex. And yeah, this was super fun. Thanks for showing
So
up.
fun. Loved it.